AITA for kicking my mother out of my wedding after she brought my ex. I male 30 started seeing my now wife, June female 29, about 3 years ago, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. June is smart, confident, and she doesn't take crap from anyone. She's been a really positive influence in my life, especially when it comes to setting boundaries. I didn't realize how bad I was at that until she came into my life and helped me see it. I used to think I was easygoing, but really, I was just letting people walk all over me. June made me realize how important it is to stand up for myself, and she's been by my side, supporting me through it all. But, as you might expect, not everyone has been thrilled with our relationship, specifically my mom. Now, a little backstory to explain this mess. My mom has never really liked June, and it started right off the bat when June didn't let my mom push her around. My mom has this habit of being super overbearing, and she's used to getting her way. If she wanted something done a certain way, it was going to be done that way, no questions asked. When I was younger, I was a bit of a pushover, something I inherited from growing up under her thumb. I was always the good son who didn't cause problems and went along with whatever she said. But June didn't stand for that. She kept firm boundaries, something I really admired, and she even helped me do the same, which was honestly life-changing. My mom, on the other hand, hated it. She'd call June controlling, a bad influence, and even said that she was breaking up our family. Every time she'd see June stand her ground, it was like it fueled this weird narrative in her head that June was trying to take me away from her. She also repeatedly said she wished I hadn't broken up with my ex, Margot. Ah yes, Margot. My mom loved Margot. We dated for about 5 years, and it was horrible. Margot was controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. She'd guilt-trip me into doing things I wasn't comfortable with, isolate me from friends, and make me feel like crap. I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells around her, always worried about saying or doing the wrong thing because it would lead to another argument or some emotional meltdown where she'd make me feel like the bad guy. But because she was really good at putting on a show, my mom thought she was this perfect, sweet girl. Margot would come over for family dinners, bring my mom little gifts, always be so polite and agreeable, and my mom lapped it up. She never saw the side of Margot that I did, the side that would manipulate me into canceling plans with friends because she needed me, or the way she'd twist my words around to make me feel guilty for things that weren't my fault. It took a lot of strength and support from my friends and my sister to finally leave her, and it was not easy. My mom was devastated when I broke up with Margot, acting like I had ruined the best thing that ever happened to me. She couldn't understand why I would want to end things with someone who was, in her eyes, such a catch. She even tried to convince me to get back with her, saying things like, "You two are perfect together, and you'll regret this one day," but I stood my ground. It was hard, but worth it, because my life has been so much better without Margot. Eventually, my mom let it go, sort of. I think she just assumed I'd find someone else eventually and move on, and she'd get her perfect daughter-in-law. But then came June. About a year after I ended things with Margot, I met June, and she was everything I needed but didn't know how to find. When we got together, my mom's true colors showed. She was cold, passive-aggressive, and made little jabs at June whenever she had the chance. She'd say things like, "I hope you're not too bossy with him," or Margot always knew how to keep him happy. It was infuriating, but June never let it get to her. She'd just smile politely and change the subject, or she'd pull me aside later and tell me to stop letting my mom treat her that way. At first, I tried to handle it diplomatically. I'd gently ask my mom to stop making those comments, but she'd just brush it off or pretend she didn't know what I was talking about. But it got worse. June, being the amazing person she is, would just brush it off and encourage me to speak up, so I did. I started calling out my mom whenever she crossed a line, and she hated it. I think it shattered this image she had of me as someone she could always control. In her mind, June was the villain, the one driving a wedge between us. Fast forward a couple of years, and June and I got engaged. It was one of those moments where everything just felt right. I'd been thinking about proposing for a while, but when the moment finally came, there was no doubt in my mind that this was exactly what I wanted. I planned it out meticulously because I wanted everything to be perfect for June. I remember the day I proposed. It was a warm, sunny afternoon, and I took her to this beautiful spot where we'd had our first date. I was nervous as hell, but as soon as I saw her smile, I knew everything would be okay. She said yes, of course, and we were both ecstatic. I don't think I've ever felt happier in my life than in that moment. Naturally, once the initial excitement wore off, we started thinking about how we were going to tell our families. Now, if you've been following along so far, you can probably guess I was a little bit anxious about how my mom would react. She'd never been a big fan of June, to say the least. It was like no matter what June did, my mom always found a way to make it seem like she was doing something wrong. If June was being assertive, she was too bossy. If she was polite and respectful, she was fake. It felt like a no-win situation, but I hoped that maybe my mom would realize how serious we were about each other and give us her blessing. I wasn't holding my breath, but I figured it was worth a shot. We decided to make a small gathering out of it, inviting both of our families to a nice lunch where we could share the news in person. I could tell June was a little nervous too, but she held my hand and smiled through it, which made me feel a lot better. When we finally made the announcement, there was this brief moment of silence, and I could feel my heart racing. I was waiting for my mom's face to twist into that familiar disapproving frown, or for her to make some kind of snide remark. Instead, she just sat there with this tight-lipped smile, nodded, and said, "Congratulations." That was it. No big reaction, no fuss. She didn't jump up and hug us, but she also didn't immediately start criticizing the idea either. It was like she was trying to keep it together, and for a moment, I thought maybe she was finally coming around. I remember thinking, okay, maybe she's finally accepting this. I mean, sure, she wasn't exactly enthusiastic. She wasn't asking to see the ring or gushing about how excited she was for us, like you'd expect a mom to do when her son gets engaged, but she wasn't hostile either. I could live with that. After everything we'd been through, her being neutral felt like a win. I even told June later that I was relieved by how my mom had handled it, and she agreed. We both thought maybe this was a sign that she was willing to be more supportive, or at least not actively sabotage things. It felt like we could finally move forward, without that constant tension hanging over us. But looking back, I should have known better. I should have seen it for what it was, just a calm before the storm. In hindsight, there was this weird sense of calm around my mom during that period. Like she was playing a role, pretending to be okay with everything while quietly plotting something. There were little hints, I guess, but I didn't pick up on them at the time. Like how she'd ask vague, almost pointed questions about the wedding plans, or how she'd suddenly drop the topic entirely if the conversation got too focused on June. It's easy to see all of it now, but back then, I was just relieved that there wasn't any immediate drama. The wedding planning itself went pretty smoothly, at least at first. June and I both knew what we wanted: a small, intimate ceremony with just our closest family and friends. We didn't want anything too extravagant or over the top. It was important to us that the ceremony felt personal and meaningful, not like a big production. We decided to keep it simple, a small ceremony for immediate family and a few very close friends, followed by a bigger reception where more people could join us to celebrate. We thought it was a good compromise. This way, we could have an intimate, emotional ceremony without the pressure of a huge audience, but still include everyone we cared about for the reception. When it came time to figure out the guest list, I made a point of giving both my mom and my dad +1s. My parents have been divorced for a long time, and they've both remarried, so it just felt like the right thing to do. I'm not particularly close to their new spouses, don't get me wrong, they're nice people, but it's not like we see each other all the time or anything, but I still thought it was respectful to extend the invitation to them. I didn't want to make things awkward by excluding them, and it seemed like a small gesture that could prevent any unnecessary drama. I remember thinking to myself, this is just about being polite. No big deal. I honestly didn't think it would cause any issues. I also made sure to explain to both of my parents that the ceremony was going to be small and intimate, and that while we'd love for their partners to join the reception, the ceremony was just for immediate family. They both seemed to understand and didn't push back on it, so I thought everything was settled. We moved forward with the rest of the planning, picking out the venue, finalizing the menu, and all those little details that go into putting together a wedding. June and I were both so excited, and it felt like everything was finally falling into place. On the day of the wedding, I woke up feeling a weird mix of emotions. I was nervous, excited, a little bit anxious, but mostly just happy. I couldn't wait to see June walk down the aisle. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Honestly, it was everything I had hoped it would be. We had it outside, surrounded by nature, with this lovely view of the countryside. It was simple and elegant, and when June walked down the aisle, I felt like my heart was going to burst. She looked absolutely stunning, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. All the stress, all the planning, it was worth it just to see her standing there, smiling at me. As we said our vows, I felt this overwhelming sense of peace and joy. I know it sounds cheesy, but it was like everything in the world just clicked into place. For those few minutes, it was just me and her, surrounded by the people who truly mattered to us. I remember thinking, this is it. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. For the first time in a long time, I felt like everything was perfect. The ceremony went off without a hitch, and I couldn't have asked for a more beautiful, heartfelt experience. Afterward, June and I went off to take some photos together, and we were both riding this high of just being so in love and so happy. We took a few pictures, posed with our families, and then it was time to head over to the reception. I was still buzzing with excitement, and I couldn't wait to get there, see all our friends, and just let loose. We were about to walk in and start celebrating when my sister and June's best friend, who was also her maid of honor, came running up to us, looking absolutely panicked. I remember the look on their faces. They were pale, wide-eyed, and clearly freaking out about something. My heart dropped immediately. I didn't know what was going on, but I had this sinking feeling in my stomach that whatever it wasn't going to be good. Before they even said anything, I spotted it. My mom was sitting at a table with my dad, his wife, and Margot. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I could barely process what I was seeing. My ex, the woman who had manipulated and controlled me for years, was at my wedding reception, sitting there like she belonged. My heart dropped straight to my stomach. It was like a nightmare unfolding right in front of my eyes. I felt a mix of emotions: shock, anger, confusion. I couldn't believe my mom would pull a stunt like this, and of all places, here, on one of the most important days of my life. For a split second, I just froze. My brain was trying to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. I could feel the heat rising up my neck, my hands curling into fists. My first instinct was to just march over there and start yelling. I mean, how could she? After everything that had happened, after knowing exactly what Margot put me through, my mom had the audacity to bring her to my wedding. My wedding, I felt this wave of rage building inside me, and I was ready to explode. But then I felt a gentle squeeze on my hand, and I looked over to see June. She could see how furious I was, and she just gave me this calm, steady look. Somehow, that tiny gesture managed to bring me back from the brink. It was like she was silently telling me, we can handle this. Don't let them ruin our day. And she was right. As much as I wanted to let loose and scream at my mom for what she'd done, I knew making a scene would just play into exactly what she wanted. So, I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and let June's calmness guide me. We walked over together, hand in hand, towards my mom, dad, and Margot. I didn't want to make a spectacle out of it in front of all the guests, so I motioned for my mom and dad to step aside. I could feel people's eyes on us, whispering and wondering what was going on, but I didn't care. I needed to address this, and I wasn't going to let my mom manipulate the situation by keeping it out in the open. Once we were a little off to the side, I asked, "What is Margot doing here?" My voice was tight, barely controlled. I could hear the anger seeping through, even though I was trying to keep it together. My mom, with this infuriatingly calm, almost smug expression, said, "I invited her. She's always been a part of this family, and I thought it would be nice for her to be here." I could feel my blood boiling. The way she said it, like she was talking about inviting an old family friend to a casual barbecue, not my ex to my wedding reception. But then she said something that just made my brain short-circuit for a moment. "She's your soulmate, and June is just in the way of true love." I stood there, staring at her, trying to comprehend what she had just said. Soulmates? Was she serious? My mind flashed back to all the times Margot had manipulated me, guilt-tripped me, twisted my words, and made me feel like I was the one always in the wrong. I thought about all the times I'd second-guessed myself because of her, how it took everything in me to finally break free, and how much support I needed from friends and my sister to get out of that toxic relationship. And now, here was my mom, telling me that Margot was my soulmate, that June my wife was just some obstacle. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't even let her finish. I just cut her off, my voice barely louder than a whisper, but filled with all the fury I was holding back. You need to leave. Right now, I could see my mom's face change, like she couldn't believe I was actually telling her to go. She started to argue, saying I was overreacting, that I was making a scene out of nothing, and that I was ruining her chance to fix things between me and Margot. Fix things. As if there was something to fix, I felt this overwhelming sense of betrayal. I had been clear with her about my past, about why I left Margot, and here she was, trying to push me back into that hell. My dad was just standing there, not saying much, looking awkward and uncomfortable. He didn't seem to be on my side, just kind of there, like he didn't want to get involved. I felt this surge of anger towards him too, because even if he wasn't the one who invited Margot, he wasn't standing up for me either. He was just letting it happen, and that hurt almost as much as what my mom was doing. I didn't have the patience to stand there and argue. I was done. I don't care what your intentions were. You crossed a line, and you need to go. My mom kept trying to reason with me, saying I was being unreasonable and that Margot just wanted to see me happy, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was done. I signaled to my best friends, who had been watching from a distance, and they came over. Can you please escort them out? I asked. I didn't want to say much more because I was afraid I'd lose my temper completely. They nodded and stepped in, gently but firmly guiding my mom, Dad, and Margot out of the venue. I watched them go, feeling this mix of relief and sadness. Part of me still couldn't believe it had come to this, that I had to kick my own mom out of my wedding reception because she thought it was okay to bring my ex. But I knew it was the right thing to do. I couldn't let her control my life like that, and I certainly wasn't going to let her ruin my wedding day. Once they were gone, I took a few deep breaths, trying to shake off the tension. I turned to June, who had been standing quietly beside me the whole time, and she just gave me this understanding smile. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. Just seeing her there, knowing she had my back, made everything feel a little bit better. We walked back into the reception together, and it took a little while, but eventually, I managed to relax. I focused on the people who were there to support us, to celebrate with us. June was amazing. She danced with me, laughed with me, and helped me remember why we were there in the first place. We were surrounded by people who did care, who wanted us to be happy, and we weren't going to let my mom's stunt ruin that. We danced, we laughed, and for those few hours, we managed to forget about everything that had just happened. I felt grateful to have June by my side, and despite everything, it ended up being a night I'll never forget, for all the right reasons. We went on our honeymoon right after the wedding, and it was everything we needed and more. We decided to completely disconnect from the world. No phones, no emails, no social media. Just the two of us, enjoying each other's company and soaking in every moment together. When we got back home, reality hit us like a ton of bricks. I remember walking through the door of our apartment, still carrying that relaxed, carefree feeling from the honeymoon, only to hear my phone buzz incessantly as soon as I turned it back on. At first, I thought it was just the usual, maybe a couple of friends sending welcome back texts, or a few notifications from apps I hadn't checked in weeks. But when I actually picked up my phone and saw the sheer number of messages, my stomach dropped. There were hundreds of texts, voicemails, and notifications, all from various family members. It was like an explosion of drama had happened while we were away, and I had no idea what I was about to walk into. I hesitated for a moment before opening any of them, hoping maybe it was just some weird glitch, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. My hands were already starting to shake a little as I started reading through the messages, and with every new text, I felt this growing sense of dread. It was pretty clear what had happened. While June and I were off enjoying our honeymoon, my mom had been going on a rampage, telling anyone and everyone who would listen that I had humiliated her by kicking her out of the reception. She was painting this picture of me as this ungrateful, heartless son who had completely disrespected her in front of the entire family, and she wasn't holding back. She'd even called relatives who weren't at the wedding, making sure they knew her version of events and stirring up as much outrage as she could. She'd twisted the story in a way that made it sound like I had kicked her out for no reason, as if I just decided on a whim that she wasn't allowed to be there. There was no mention of her inviting Margot without telling me, no hint of how she had deliberately disrespected me and June on our wedding day. It was all about how she was the victim, how I had overreacted, and how hurt she was by my cruel actions. And, of course, her story had worked. My family members were furious with me. I had texts from aunts, uncles, cousins, even people I hadn't talked to in years calling me out, saying things like, "I can't believe you would do that to your mother and she just wanted to be there for you, and you threw her out." Some of them suggested that I should have just ignored Margot's presence and not made such a big deal out of it. A few even implied that I was letting June control me, which felt like a punch to the gut. I was reading these messages, trying to process how things had gotten so twisted, and all I could think was, did they not even bother to ask what actually happened? It was like everyone had just taken my mom's side without even considering that there might be more to the story. It was infuriating and heartbreaking at the same time. Then there were the messages from my dad. I thought he would at least understand why I did what I did, or at the very least, try to see it from my perspective. But instead, he sent me this long, condescending text about how I could have handled the situation more gracefully. He said he understood that I was upset, but that I should have just quietly asked Margot to leave and let my mom stay to avoid causing a scene. I couldn't believe it. The fact that he thought my mom bringing Margot, of all people, to my wedding was just something I should have let slide made my blood boil. It felt like he was completely ignoring the fact that my mom had deliberately crossed a boundary and was trying to manipulate the entire situation. The worst part was that I was starting to second-guess myself. When you have that many people telling you you're wrong, it's hard not to start wondering if maybe they're right. I thought about the day of the wedding, about how furious I'd been, and I started to wonder if maybe I had overreacted. Should I have just ignored Margot? Would it have been better to quietly pull my mom aside, tell her Margot needed to leave, and let my mom stay? Maybe that would have been the more graceful way to handle it. But then I thought about everything that had led up to that moment, about how my mom had knowingly invited my ex to my wedding reception, and I felt that surge of anger all over again. It wasn't just about Margot being there, it was about the fact that my mom had completely disrespected me and June, on a day that was supposed to be about us. June and my sister have been my rocks through all of this. When I finally told June what was going on, she just listened, hugged me, and said, "You did the right thing." She's been so calm and supportive, reminding me that my mom's actions were deliberate and that I had every right to stand up for myself and for us as a couple. My sister, who knows all too well how manipulative our mom can be, was on my side from the start. She was at the wedding, she saw the whole thing unfold, and she's been defending me to our relatives, even when it's caused tension with them. I'm grateful to have them both in my corner, but with so many people against me, it's been hard not to feel overwhelmed. So, am I the asshole for kicking my mom and my ex out of my wedding reception? I'd appreciate any perspective on this.